We're here. It's Monday. It's 9:30. It's time for Pilates. So I hope you're feeling well. Hope you've had a decent enough weekend. We were fortunate, weren't we? The weather was good. Even though we're not able to do huge amounts of things that involve any other people, the weather was good. So our session today is very much based on a little bit of back flexibility and a little bit of strength there, because I don't know if any of you got in the garden, but I woke up this morning sort of like Neanderthal thinking, oh, we'll do backs today. So lots of the normal mobility, lots of core strength, lots of really visualizing, just so we can really access those deep core muscles. So without further ado, I'm going to tell you what you might need. So I've got my mat on the floor. You can't see it that well because I'm going to do the warm up standing and then I'll get down on the floor. But we have, every week I do this, don't I? I say we're going to use these resistance bands and then I forget. But I am going to try and bring them into today's session. If you don't have one, don't panic, because you might have a towel ready anyway to support your head, and you can use towel or you can use no equipment at all. I do like to have a little towel to support your head, so we don't want your head sort of falling backwards like that when you're on your back, and we don't really want when you're on your front, your head doing this. So we want a nice long neck. We're going to be really aware of our alignment of our shoulders, our spine and our pelvis all the time. Excuse me. And I've got a drink as well, but best to stay hydrated, but you can always hydrate afterwards if you don't like doing during. So anything you feel uncomfortable about today, I just want you to leave it out. Maybe do something you do feel comfortable with. Maybe get in touch with me and we can chat about it in the future. So shall we start? Let's do it. All right, I'm going to take my watch off. It just gets on my nerves when we're doing Pilates. So we're going to stand, feet hip width apart. Okay, and we're going to just think about where we place those feet. So if I stand on the mat, some of us have sort of ways we tend to stand. We tend to stand a bit like this. So we really want to try and imagine you've got a spirit level over your hip bones. It's nice and flat, and that red dot is exactly in the middle. And when we look down at our feet, if we tend to stand a little bit like this, we're going to try and get those heels in line with those hip bones and try and get those feet as parallel as possible, maybe as close to sort of 12 o'clock on that clock face as you can. Obviously, if that's really uncomfortable, you can take your feet out a little bit, but just try and dampen down some of our sort of favourite stances if it tends to be very away from this. And then we're going to think about this nice long spine. So stand nice and tall and just imagine space opening up between each little segment of that spine all the way through to the crown of that head. And then we're going to just think about squeezing those shoulders up towards the ears. We're going to gently slide those shoulders down. So we're going to squeeze those shoulders up. And as we do this, we're going to gently breathe in through the nose. And as you allow those shoulders to gently fall away from the ears, just take a breath out through that mouth. It's like a soft breath out. So we're taking a breath in and just relaxing. We're aware of this breathing. You can feel your feet grounded, firmly in contact with the floor. And we're going to take one more breath in. And we're just going to be aware of those shoulders sliding away from the ears. And we're just going to see how far those shoulders are actually willing to go. So we think we finished. Just let them fall a little bit further. Just let those arms hang. Good. Excellent. Now, with those lovely relaxed shoulders, we are just going to take a little spine swing. You might want to take your feet even further apart for this one. We're going to relax a little bit more. So you can see I'm letting that opposite heel move away from the mat or from the floor. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're on your mat or on the floor. Okay, you might find you want to just turn that head and look over the shoulder. You might find you don't. This might be a little bit too much. And if it is, just keep those movements really small, if that makes sense. And then we're going to just bring it back and we'll just let those arms fall into place. We're going to just come back to hip width apart, and then you're just going to warm these shoulders up a little bit. I'm going to come off the mat, otherwise I'm going to hit the the ceiling, and that's something else to be aware of. If you just notice that you have a space that's a little bit encumbered, see if you can just clear a couple of things maybe out the way. Nothing too heavy. Don't hurt your back in the clearing process, but just make sure you've got a safe space to work in. Good. Because although we need space for the mat, quite often our feet or our arms will come off that mat. Good. Okay, one more little wave, and then just let those arms relax again. Good. And then we're going to see if we can, I'm going to just move in this direction so you can see what I'm doing. We're just going to lift those feet off the floor. So it might be a small movement. You might have to hold on to something, but we're just going to lift those heels off the floor, slowly back down. And we don't have to go straight into your full range. Let's see if we can do that in time with your breathing. So we're going to breathe in and we're going to breathe out. We're going to breathe in and we're going to breathe. See if we can slow it down a little bit. In through the nose. And as we're breathing in, imagine breathing into the back of the ribs. As you're breathing in, see if you can breathe into the side of your ribs. And then we'll bring those heels down. Good. So we're finally just going to imagine we've got this bucket of water in your pelvis. And what we're going to do, standing nice and still, long spine, we're going to see if we can tip some water out of the back of the bucket. Okay. And then we're going to tilt the pelvis the other way, tip some water out the front. So we're tipping water out of the back and out of the front. And we're going to make those tipping movements smaller and smaller till you arrive at a midpoint where the water is totally flat. And we have this natural curve in the base of our spine. It's what we call neutral spine. So the hip bones at the front of your body are on an even plane with the hip bones at the back. And this is what we're going to be looking for all the way through the session. And we'll keep practicing it. Now I'm going to get you to draw your hip bones together, as if you had a big tight corset on and you're having to just do it up a couple of notches. So we're just going to draw those hip bones together. Now we're going to tighten them as much as we can, all the way to 100%, belt notch 10, and then we're going to release. Good. Now breathe in to prepare. This time we're going to do about 50% of your maximum. Belt notch 5. Good. Draw those hip bones together and release. And then finally, we're just going to do it a little bit lighter. So maybe 30% of your maximum, belt notch 3. And then once we're there, we're going to relax these arms down by the side. We're going to roll these shoulders up to the ears, slide your shoulder blades down that back towards the bottom. We're going to breathe in and we're going to breathe out. Good. We're going to breathe in. And we're going to breathe out now. Remember that belt. Remember that neutral spine. We're going to come into our side bends and we're going to breathe out. And as you breathe in, make sure you tighten that belt only to notch 3, maybe notch 4 if you're feeling a little bit unsure. But we don't need to have it at our maximum. It's an endurance set of muscles. They're designed to work all the time. So what we're doing here is doing a nice warm up for this lower back. So both feet comfortably on the floor. Remember that spirit level across those hip bones. The red dot stays in the middle as we lift this rib cage. Good. And generally we're breathing out as we move away from center and breathing in as we come back to that start position. It doesn't always go like that. And don't worry if your breathing is totally opposite to mine. Just shake it out a little bit. Don't worry if your breathing goes awry. The main things to think about is that alignment. So making sure we're not overarching the back, keeping the shoulders relaxed, lengthening through that spine. So if you can remember that, that's the most important thing. Now, we're going to see if we can bring these fingertips together in a prayer position, slide those shoulder blades all the way down that back towards the bottom. Now we're going to imagine you've got those headlights shining on the wall in front of you, and we're going to take a gentle twist. So if we were facing 12 o'clock on a clock face, we're going to start just moving to 5 to 1, 5 to 1, 5 to 12, and then 5 past. Now, some of us may need to be careful because of bone density, so we're going to stay with this smaller range. But if you're feeling comfortable increasing that range, we're just going to gradually, you'll find you won't be able to go too far because this part of the spine is attached to the ribs. So they actually limit your movement. So we're just getting a nice bit of easy movement here. And then we're going to come back to center. And just let those arms relax. Good. Let those arms swing. This really helps to relax those shoulders. Now, we're going to see if we can just open out that chest, breathe in. And as you do that, we're going to make sure we tighten that belt. We're not going to arch that back, and we're going to breathe out. Good. So we're looking out onto the horizon, breathing in, breathing out. We're going to take one more of these, and then we're going to bring those arms down to the side. We're going to take an arm float. So leading with this thumb, we are going to breathe in, and as we lower, we're going to breathe out. Let's do the same with the other side. Remember, we're not trying to lift those shoulders. So as we lift, slide that shoulder blade down the back towards the bottom. Imagine you've got a steel thread attached from the pelvis to the ribs, and as you raise that arm up, the steel thread is stopping this rib cage from moving. So you might find your shoulder movement is a little bit limited compared to normal because you're used to lifting the rib cage. Good. Let's take one more either side. We're going to breathe in and we're going to breathe out. You might find that your range will increase as we go. And we're going to breathe out. And then we're going to just take a little squat movement. So not overdoing it. We've not got shoes on. We're not warmed up at the legs yet. But we're just going to get these thighs a little bit warmer. It's fairly cold still. Winter season. And just squeeze this bottom on the way back down. Now what we're going to do is come into a half squat position. Take those hands on the thighs and look towards the floor. So we've got a nice long back. Now, I'm going to get you to imagine you've got a big long tail and that you're a dog and we're a sad dog. So we're just basically going to tilt the pelvis, push that tail between the knees. It's a little bit like a standing cat stretch. So we're looking towards the knees, looking towards that carpet in front of us. So we're going to breathe out as we take that tilt. Breathe in to return to that lengthened spine. Breathe out, and we're breathing in. And then we're just going to take that little tilt, and we're going to walk those hands all the way up the spine. So we're pushing that tail down towards the heels. Take a nice roll of those shoulders. Now, we're going to practice our roll downs. So we're going to think about dropping that chin down towards the chest, lifting that rib cage over an imaginary beach ball at your feet. Now, if you're in any doubt about that back, just bend the knees and take it very small range. So we can just drop that chin to the chest, tighten that belt. Okay, and as we lift over that imaginary beach ball, just breathe out gently through that mouth. And then when you get just to maybe a third of the way you think you can get to, we're going to stop, breathe in, make sure we're pushing that tail down towards your heels, tighten that belt, and we're going to roll up, stacking each little segment of the spine. Good. And then this head is the last thing to come up. Just slide those shoulder blades down the back. So you can do as many of these as you feel comfortable doing in the warm-up. I'm going to get you just to go, and you can just take it as far as you feel comfortable. If you feel ready to straighten out the legs, you can, or keep that bend the whole time. Just remember, if someone pushed the arms, they'd just be swinging, and his head is totally relaxed. So we quite often see this. So the head's a little bit tense. So just let that chin drop to the chest. Keep that belt tightened and only go as far as you feel. Don't push it. So don't reach for that floor. Don't even look for that floor. And then breathe in at the bottom, tighten that belt, push that tail down towards the floor, and we're going to roll up through that spine. Good. And then on that next one, we're going to bring ourselves to the front of the mat, and however you feel comfortable. So some of us may not feel comfortable doing that roll down. So some of us may want to just come down onto that mat into a kneeling position this way, or we can come into that kneeling position using that roll down, bending the knees, coming out. Knees underneath the hips, hands underneath the shoulders. So I'm just going to move the position of the camera with this very sophisticated movement system. I'm basically lifting it and moving it. Oh, good stuff. All right, are we there? Are we even? Good. So we should be in a kneeling position. Okay, if the knees don't like it, just come into a lying down position, or maybe just come into a seated position with the knees tucked into your chest. Now, what we're going to do is lengthen through these arms, and then we're going to really lengthen through that spine. Imagine you're that dog again, and you've got that tail sticking straight out behind you. We're looking at an invisible line at the top of those fingertips, and then we're tightening that belt. And what I love to do when we're in this position is imagine I've lit a little campfire underneath your belly button, and it's burning that belly button. So we're going to draw that belly button away from the fire. And then, like we were doing standing, we're going to push that tail just between your legs as if you were a sad dog. And then we're going to come back to that sticking it straight out behind you position. So we're starting with the pelvic tilt. Good. Now we're going to come into that full cat stretch. We're going to push into the palms of the hands. Just let that head drop so we're looking towards the knees, and we're drawing that spine up towards the ceiling. So we're going to breathe out, breathe in, draw those shoulder blades all the way down, draw those shoulders away from the ears, and we're lengthening through those arms. So just notice what's happening here. We tend to do that. So I want us to lengthen through those arms. We're going to do one more, and then we're just going to sit back onto the heels, coming into that nice relaxed posture, that child's pose posture, letting that forehead relax, just letting those elbows, forearms relax. Good. Okay. Breathe out, my friends. And then we're just going to bring those knees together. We're going to bring ourselves onto our backs. So when we're coming onto our backs, we want to again think about that foot position. They sort of say the feet are the window to the body, really. And however you're standing can really indicate where you have tightness, where you have limited mobility. So it goes to say that if we train you doing that, we're going to get tight hips. So we're just going to try and get it as even as we can. Now, I'll move my many bands that I forgot to show you. What we're going to do is just support ourselves down onto the mat. And the first thing we're going to think about is that alignment. So you might need that towel underneath your head. So we've got that long neck leading into that long spine, feet hip width apart, knees pointing up to the ceiling, and then shoulders relax. So let those arms relax down by your side. We're going to bring those heels to about a 90-degree angle knee-wise. Some of you may prefer it a little bit closer, so we work the glutes a little bit more, that's the bottom muscles. Some may prefer a little bit further away, so it's a bit of preference. And then we're going to take that pelvic tilt, so remember that neutral spine. So as those hip bones, as the pubic bone comes sort of higher than the belly button, you'll notice that this lower back is pressing down into the mat, and as the belly button comes level with the pubic bone. It becomes more of that neutral, natural curve. And then if the belly button rises above the pubic bone, that back is arching. And that is what we really don't want when we're doing our abdominal work. It's going to hurt your back. So tighten that belt, come into neutral spine, and we're just going to practice that mini pelvic tilt where we just gently press that lower back down into the mat and tilt that pelvis so the pubic bone is slightly higher than the belly button. And then come back so the belly button and the pubic bone are just equal levels and you're in that neutral spine. So we're going to breathe out as we tilt, breathe in as we come back. Good. Breathing out and breathing in. Now, when you feel ready, we're going to take this into bridge. So we're going to take that pelvic tilt and then we're going to squeeze the glutes. We're going to just squeeze the bottom muscles and push into the heels and just bring your hips away from the floor. And then we're just going to come all the way back down. So as you come back down, just imagine pressing one at a time, starting at the top, each little segment of the spine, back to that neutral spine. Okay, so let's breathe in to prepare. As we're breathing in, make sure we're relaxed, starting in that neutral spine position. As you breathe out, let's tighten that belt, tilt that pelvis, squeeze these bottom muscles, peel that spine away from the mat. Now at the top, see if you can really squeeze the bottom. If you feel it in the lower back, you may have pushed into the ribs a bit too much. You may be arching the back. So just see if you can find that neutral spine. Remember those steel threads attaching the ribs to the pelvis. They're not able to stretch. And then we're going to breathe in. We're going to come all the way back down again. Remember, one little segment at a time. Let's do sort of 5 or 6 more of these. And this is brilliant. You can feel the muscles we're targeting. So we're targeting the bottom muscles, targeting the hamstring muscles in the back of the leg. You've got work for those core muscles because they're having to stabilize the whole thing. And the shoulder girdle, that wants to sort of tense up and really support you. But we're making sure it's nice and relaxed. We're using these muscles here to do the balancing instead. Good. So we're looking straight up towards the ceiling, breathing out on the hardest part of the move through the mouth. Breathing in at the top of the move, really squeezing that bottom. Don't let that bottom drop. Coming all the way back down, breathing out. Good. So breathing in, breathing out. That's great. Keeping those knees pointing straight up towards the ceiling. Now on this one, we're going to hold it there and we're going to float those arms to the ceiling. Now, if this doesn't work for you, just bring the bridge down and do this in that start position. And we're just going to breathe out. Let this arm float like we did in the standing position. We're not allowing those ribs to pop and we're not letting that bridge fall, okay? So squeeze that bottom. Remember that spirit level across the hip bones, that red dots in the middle. We're looking straight up. Let's see if we can take a little switch in midair, shall we? So as the right arm comes overhead, we're squeezing those glutes and pushing that left arm towards the feet. Good. We're going to take 2 more of these, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, bringing this arm down, coming all the way back down. Good. Whew. So that was quite a good workout on these muscles here. And one of my thinkings was to try and really strengthen the bottom muscles because most of us tend to, when we're doing our gardening, I'm not saying you're all gardeners, but we tend to use the back a lot rather than these muscles. And I'm going to see if we can get these strengthened up so that we avoid doing that. Now I've got these both knees just drawn towards the chest. What we're going to do now is take 1 foot away from you, slide it away from center, and we're going to just pull 1 knee towards the same shoulder. And then when you feel ready, we're going to draw that knee gently across the body, towards the opposite shoulder, keeping both shoulder blades on the mat, keeping those hip bones just as close to the mat as possible. And then bring it back, and we're going to change legs. So we're going to bring that straight leg up, take this one down, push it away. Good. So we're starting just drawing same knee to the same shoulder. And then as we breathe out, really relaxing into this little stretch. So you'll feel that stretch sort of in the side of the bottom. Maybe some of you feel it in the lower back. Okay, it's a really useful stretch to do. Okay, so we're going to release. We're going to bring this foot up and bring this one down. Okay, let's walk these feet together. Walk the knees together. We're going to do a lovely, I'm sort of a bit miles away from you there. We're going to do a lovely little mobility exercise to the spine. So we're just going to take these arms out into an arrow shape. Tighten that belt, so draw those hip bones together. But it's only to notch 3, remember. And then we're just going to let these knees fall one way. And we're coming back to 12 o'clock on that clock face. So again, a little bit like earlier, we're just taking it to 5 to the hour, 5 past the hour. And some of us will just stay at this point. But if you feel comfortable taking it a little bit further, just keep those shoulders relaxed. Keep allowing those shoulder blades just to melt down into that mat. We're still drawing those hip bones together. And you might feel comfortable just taking that head in the opposite direction to the knees, not forcing anything. So really just allow your body to move to where it feels comfortable going. And as you reach that point of tension, just gently bring it back. So it's a little bit like we're a sort of piece of elastic. We don't want this elastic to snap. We just want to take it to its recoil point, not overdo it, and just allow it to come back. So we're breathing out, breathing in. This is one of my favorite movements to do in the morning. In fact, you pretty much you've pretty got my morning routine at the first half of this session. Now we're going to bring these feet back to hip width apart. We're going to do a little bit of work for these deep abdominals. So we've got those knees in that 90-degree angle. And what we're going to do next is come into a single leg tabletop. So that means bringing one leg. We've still got that 90-degree angle. I'm just going to move that knee there so the light's not so good with these long trousers. Now, we want that knee over the hip. Okay, the closer it is here, the easier it's going to be for the core muscles. The further away it is, the harder. So if we bring it here, and what we're going to do is just tighten that belt, relax the shoulders, and hold that 90-degree angle. We're just going to push that thigh away from center. So it's just the thigh that's moving away. We're not doing that. Okay. Now, those of you who've been coming a while, we can do this with 2 legs in tabletop, but I am going to just do it with 1 leg in tabletop. So we're going to take somewhere between 8 and 12 toe dips. Now we call it a toe dip because I like to imagine we're lying next to a beautiful swimming pool. We're in Portugal and we're just going to test the water, okay? So we're just dipping that toe down. Ooh, still quite cold, so we're going to bring it back up. Okay, so we're breathing out, breathing in. Now, notice what's happening with this lower back. If these muscles aren't strong enough, what will happen is that lower back will arch away from the floor. So your job is to draw this tummy button away from the waistband of the trousers. Stop that back from arching. Keep pushing that tail towards the skirting board in front of you. Breathing out and breathing in. Now, I've no idea how many I did there, so I'm going to switch legs and we'll do the same on the other side. Good. So remember, you can be doing this double leg tabletop if you feel you need a bit more of a challenge. Remember, we're really warming these abdominals up as well, so don't worry if you think, this is a bit easy. But if you do, we can add those arm floats, opposite arm or same arm, okay? Good. So we're just breathing out. Now, notice what happens in that lower back as we get in this position and as you come back. Really slow down that way back up. It's actually really challenging. Good. And again, I've lost count, but I've just got to focus on relaxing those shoulder blades down into the mat. And I think this is my last one. But if you want to do a couple more, that's fine. And then we're going to bring these knees into the chest again. Now this time, we're going to take a mini rolling like a ball movement. So I'm keeping my head just nice and relaxed on my towel or on my mat, but I'm just gently pulling these knees to the chest, imagining that lower back is a little bit like a beach ball, and we're just gently massaging it, gently mobilizing it on the mat. Good. All righty. I'll just have a little look at my list, my friends. Where are we going next? Ooh. So now we're all going to try a double leg tabletop. So we're going to, again, find that neutral spine. We're going to breathe in to bring one leg into tabletop. And this is the hardest bit. So we're going to breathe out and bring two legs. Now, we're going to imagine that we've got a little glass of water balanced on each shin bone. And if this is really challenging or you're in doubt about that lower back and you want to just protect it a little bit, bring your knees a little bit closer. So that back will automatically find it easier to stay neutral and closer to the mat. If you want to challenge a little bit more, you can take those knees a little bit further away, okay? And I'm going to come just knees in line with hips. Now, let's think about tightening that belt. And as we breathe in, we're just going to really relax those shoulder blades down into the mat. We're going to tighten that belt. You may need that belt a little bit tighter than notch 3. Now, remember those arm floats. We're going to do this without letting those ribs pop, without letting that back arch. So we're going to breathe out. We're going to breathe in. We're going to breathe out. So by now, you'll either be thinking, oh, this is really hard, or this is really easy. So if it's really easy, just make sure you're not letting those ribs pop. And you can just take those knees a little bit further away. If it's really hard and you're finding it difficult to control that lower back, just bring them a little bit closer. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take that scissor switch, breathing out and in. We're going to breathe out and in. Really draw those hip bones together. Don't let that lower back arch away from the mat. Try and imagine that steel thread between the base of the ribs and the top of the pelvis. Good. Okay, keep squeezing. 3. We've got 2 more. We're breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. Now, let's just see if we can take one nice big circle with these arms. We're going to breathe out. Oh, I knocked my drink over. And in. We're going to breathe out. Now, if this is too much to do with the legs in this position, bring them in, breathing out and in. And then again, we're going to roll like a ball. And only if you feel comfortable, we can lift that chest slightly and just roll about as far as the shoulder blades is enough. And okay, you may feel comfortable. And just remember that little orange between the chin and the chest. There shouldn't be a banging here. So if you find you're thumping, it's probably because your back's not curved enough. So stay with that back on the floor and just do this. All right, my friends, let's take one foot down and the other. Okay, we're going to just take one leg over this thigh. So we're taking basically the outside heel bone. Now, some of you may need to avoid this. I'm thinking of one gentleman in particular. And we're just going to allow this knee to fall down to the side. Okay, so we're just going to relax those arms, let that knee fall away to the side, and then what we're going to do is just lift that knee. You can pull it a little bit closer. Oh, there's the dog barking, apologies. And just going to hold that, breathe out. So if we breathe out, we're really helping ourselves relax into these stretches. So you'll feel that here. This is a little muscle called the piriformis, and this can get quite tight, can give us quite a lot of issues. So I'm going to try and build this in as much as possible. I sometimes forget, but we usually get some sort of hip stretching going on. So nice and easy does it. So you may want to bring that a little bit closer. You may prefer to sort of just put a little pressure on the inside of that bent knee. Try and keep that foot flexed if you can. It sort of helps protect the knee. And we're just going to get that really nice little stretch, breathing out. Nice and relaxed in the head and shoulders as well. Okay, so we'll bring one foot down and then the other. We're going to let these knees come to the side. And I think we're going to go straight onto our front. Is that okay? Good, good. So what we're going to do is come onto our front in our prone position. So here I'm going to think about just making sure I've got enough support underneath my forehead so that my back and my neck is nice and long. Okay, now we're now going to take just a nice comfortable position, almost an arrow shape with these arms, palms facing down. And we're going to slide those shoulders away from the ears. We are going to lengthen through the spine, and then we're going to see if we can draw that belt-like muscle together. So we're going to draw that tummy button away from the mat without sort of tilting that pelvis one way or the other. And what we tend to do when we're lying down is just let that tummy just dome into the mat. So try not to let that happen. Okay, now those feet are hip width apart. All we're going to do is draw that tummy button in, and we're going to see if we can gently lift that chest away from the mat. So we're working our lower back muscles. So we can squeeze the glutes, we can push those toes away from center, and we're only lifting as far as we feel comfortable. Now, some of you may need a little bit of support from these forearms, so that's why they're there. If you don't need any support, we're going to slide these hands, palms facing the thighs, and we're going to lift, draw those shoulders away from the ears, almost reach for the ankle bones. And bring it down. And again, we're going to do between 8 and 12 of these. Squeeze and release. Good. We're just going to squeeze that bottom, draw those shoulder blades together as you lift, slowly lower. So breathing out. And in. So you might find you want to do a couple more. You might find that's enough. So even though I say 8 to 12, sometimes just, maybe 3 or 4 is enough, especially if you're starting this program today. Now, we're going to bring these hands underneath the chest, and we're going to come back into that cat stretch. Okay, but just one, so we can just stretch that back out. So we're doing a little bit of flexion after the extension, really nice and safe. And then we're going to bring it all the way back down again. Now this time, we're going to see if we can relax the bottom. So we still want this lovely neutral spine. We still want to avoid that tummy doming into the mat, but we're going to make this jelly-like. Same position with these hands, and we're going to come into that little squeeze that makes part of the Swan Dive. So we're working the upper back muscles, and we're just squeezing the shoulder blades together, gently lifting the forearms away from the mat, and release. Good. So squeeze. Breathing out and in. Squeeze. Make sure those arms come all the way back down. So this forehead is on the mat, that neck totally relaxed. All we're doing is working those little muscles in and around the shoulder blades, back at the shoulders, and tighten that belt, but relax that bottom. Relax that bottom. Good. And we're just going to take 4 more. Stop if you need to. So this is excellent for your posture. Remember, those palms are down. Elbows slightly lower than the shoulders. And when you've done your number, you've had enough, we're going to push ourselves up. This time we're going to come into that child's pose position. And I'm going to let those arms just stretch out in front of me. But if you're not comfortable with that, you can bring them here. Just sit back. And this is all about just a nice, relaxed, stretching pose. So if that's too uncomfortable for you, just find something that works for you. So it could be the cat stretch, it could be anything really. Now, let's see what is on my list next. Ooh, she says. We're going to walk ourselves out again. And we're going to turn ourselves onto our sides. So we want those hips stacked, and then we're going to bend the knees. So again, we're looking at that 90-degree angle, and I'm just going to turn here and pray that my feet are not filthy, because I think my floor is. So we want those heels in line with that tailbone, all right? If they're here or here, it sort of puts a bit of pressure behind, certainly on the lower back. It's not quite in the right place we want to be. So you might want to put that towel underneath your head. I like to use my arm just to rest that head on. And we've got that, again, little imaginary orange between the chin and the chest. Now this shoulder, slide it down away from the ear, slide that shoulder blade down the back. Now you can use the hand for support. Here is a little bit more support, here more support again, but try not to let that shoulder collapse. Okay, now remember that neutral spine, so we don't want that back arch and that tummy doming out. So draw that belly button in, tighten that belt, and all we're going to do is we're just going to open, and so we're working these muscles in and around the pelvis. So this is called our clam. So we're breathing out, slowly breathing in, breathing out. Good, and slowly breathing. So you should feel it around here. So if you're not feeling it here, just check that foot position. Check it's not too far forwards and that those heels are in line with the tailbone. And again, we're going to look somewhere between 8 and 12, but if 3 or 4 is enough for you, if you want to do a few more, that is fine. Good, so we're going to breathe out. What I meant to show you today was my little looped band. Okay, because I've been using them a lot for shoulder bridge, and you can use them for clam as well. But I tell you what, we'll build it into the next session. So we're going to breathe out and in. Now, when we've done our 8 to 12, so I'm aiming for about 10. I've got no idea how many I've done. Once we're there, we're just going to give that muscle a little bit of a rub. Now, we're going to slide this arm underneath. We're going to go into that chest flexibility. So nice relaxed shoulders, palms on top of each other. It's the open door. So we're just going to open, feel that lovely stretch across the shoulders, front of the chest, and we're going to bring it down. So if you haven't got this, you can just roll up this, or you can let that head go. It's just not as comfortable if you let that head go. So we're always looking for that nice alignment. And it's a little bit like a door opening, but notice the door isn't here. It's so level with or below the shoulder. It's really level with that chest. And as you open, see if you can stop that hip rolling backwards to give you more range. So clamp that into place, and we're going to breathe out. Good. Okay. And then we're going to come back. Now, this is where we've got to remember which side we've worked, because we're going to come back onto your front, okay? So we're going to come back onto your front. We're going to do a little bit of work on the glutes and the upper back and the lower back inadvertently. So we're going to be working here and here, and we're going to do swimming legs. So you can relax your forehead on the back of those hands if you like, or here, but slide those shoulders away from the ears and slide those shoulder blades down the back. Now, all we're going to do is tighten that belt,
Lengthen one leg using these glutes, using that lower back away from the floor. Slowly lower down. So we're going to do 8 to 10 on this leg. Squeeze from the hip from here. It's not here, okay? All right, so we're going to breathe out and in. Now notice these hip bones. Both hip bones should be in contact with the mat. We shouldn't be lifting the hip bone away from the floor. So we're really squeezing and down. So this is working those bottom muscles, the lower back muscles. It's a brilliant, brilliant way to strengthen them. So we're going to squeeze. Now here, keep those shoulders nice and relaxed. Keep that spine long. Keep that tummy button drawn away from the mat. Remember that burning hot mat. It's like hot coals underneath it. And then when we've done our 8 to 10 on one leg, we're going to do the same on the other side. Good. So we're just going to squeeze and release. Lovely. Squeeze and release. So it's coming from the hips. We're not bending those knees. We're squeezing. Lovely. Don't forget to relax those shoulders. Keep those core muscles active, so keep tightening that belt. It's really tempting to sort of let that tummy dome and to sort of really arch your back with this one. Okay, so keep it in, squeeze. Good work, my friends. Okay, so we're going to take one more, bring it down, and then we're going to go back to that little movement that we were doing earlier. So that swan squeeze, as I call it, we're going to take it into the full swan dive. Now I'm going to give you an option of doing this with that minuscule chest lift, if you've been with me before, but I'm going to keep my forehead on the mat. We're going to let these become jelly, activate this belt-like muscle. So imagine you're on that bed of hot coals, and then we're going to squeeze, and then we're just going to slide one hand forward, squeeze that elbow back towards the bottom, and again. So we've got that W start position. Now, as we imagine those fingertips are on a tennis ball, and we're just rolling the tennis ball forward, squeezing it backwards. So we're just rolling 2 tennis balls forwards and backwards. That bottom is relaxed. Keep tightening that belt. So draw those lower abdominals away from the mat. Keep that bottom relaxed. Now let's see if we can do 2 together. So we're going to breathe in, and we're going to squeeze those elbows all the way around towards those outside ankle bones. They won't get there. We're going to do 3 more if you can. Breathing in. And breathing out as we squeeze down. Good. Okay. Let's just bring ourselves up into that cat stretch. Oh, draw that spine up towards the ceiling. Push into the palms of those hands. Bring it back. Bring those knees together. Oh, lovely. Now, we're going to sit in a straddle position. How are you doing, my friends? Are we okay? Anything feel wrong? If anything feels wrong, remember, don't do it. But what I want us to focus on now is a nice long back, okay? Shoulders relaxed away from the ears. And what we're going to do is just draw that tummy button in. And we're just going to take that little stretch. Now, if I come back a bit so you can actually see my arms, didn't work that one out, did I? So I bent it a little bit, but really we're just softening this elbow, lifting that rib cage, breathing out, breathing in. So as you come up, try and make sure we're not slumped. So you might find you need to raise those sitting bones a little bit, and it helps us to sit up a little bit taller. So if we're a little bit tight in the hip flexors or the hamstrings, it really helps. Good. And then we're just going to take one more breath out and bring it back. Good stuff. Okay, I'm having a little look at what's coming next. All right, what we're going to do next is just take those arms out into that, legs out into that straddle position. I think, what's the definition? My kids asked me, what's multitasking, Mum? And I said, I've got no idea. I can't do it. And you could just see that. I was reading my list and talking about arms when I meant legs. So same principle here, particularly when we straighten out our legs, we tend to do that a little bit. So really try and create that space. You feel it in the hip flexors. So really try and create that space between the base of the ribs and the top of the pelvis. And then see if we can almost bring in a little bit of pelvic floor. So draw up that elevator, that lift to the first floor, or tighten your belt, or do both. Now we're going to bring these fingertips together. Now just be careful of this if you've got any bone density issues, because we're going to take a little twist to the side. We're going to come back to center. So we're going to keep this really small if there's any issues with that spine. Otherwise, we're still going to keep it pretty gentle. Okay, anything involving this back, we don't want to force it. Good. Now, if you're feeling comfortable, we're going to open out that chest and we're going to take that little twist. Good. Just draw those shoulder blades together. Now, if those arms are up here, you're going to feel it here. So bring them slightly lower than the shoulders. Open up the chest. It's almost as if this one's pulling you. Coming back to center. Good. Breathing out. Breathing in. Slide those shoulder blades down that back. Good. Okay, we're going to bring it down. Before I forget to do the other side, we're going to slide these feet this way. And again, that 90-degree angle at the knee. And we're going to see if we can come into our clams. Okay, so neutral spine. See if you can imagine drawing that tummy butt. Create some space between your waist and that mat. And then we're going to just open, control it shut. Good. Remember that supporting shoulder. Nice and relaxed. Breathing out and in. Lovely. Good. So just see if we can relax the shoulders. Take our awareness into the breathing, into that area that we're working, into those shoulders, making sure they're not carrying tension from the move, making sure that tummy's not starting to drop down towards the mat. Lovely. Okay, so when we've done our 8 to 10 of these, we're going to slowly bring this down. And then again, we're going to slide this hand and bring this palm on top. So the palms meet. I'm going to roll my mat up a little bit so I've got some support for my head and into that open door. So relax the shoulders away from the ears, tighten that belt. Imagine I've clamped those hips nice and still. We're going to breathe out and we're going to breathe in. Wonderful, guys. Good. Breathing out. So take your awareness into that top hip. What's it doing? Is it rolling backwards? Could you balance a glass of water on it? Good. And we're going to breathe out. And we're going to breathe in. Let's take one more, shall we? Let's take one more. And what we're going to do with this one is we're just going to open and then we're going to let those knees just gently open and as comfortably as you can, as relaxed as you can, bring yourself onto your back. I'm sort of awry. I don't think I've ever managed it off the mat or on the mat. Okay, yes. We're going to just set up that head so that it feels right. Now, has anyone got a little resistance band? If you haven't, don't worry. But if you have, you can grab it now. You might have it and not want to use it, because what we're going to do is, do you remember those knee circles and then the leg circles? So I can see my toes going to come off screen. Ooh, can't get the staff with doing the camera angles. But what we're going to try and do is, I'm going to show you with the band first. And I'm going to just show you, oh, here we go. What we're going to do is put the band over the front part of the foot, the middle of the foot, push into that band. So if I show you here, we're just going to do a little flex and a point. And then when you're ready, we're just going to see if we can draw. Now notice the shoulders are relaxed, hands are nice and still. We're just going to draw 5 circles one way with that leg as straight as we can. Now, if you haven't got a band, this is going to be your alternative. You're going to come into single leg tabletop. We're going to balance that pencil on top of your knee, and we're going to draw the circles with your knee. Now, those of you who've not been with us, watch out for this bad boy, this leg, because quite often it wants to do this. Okay, so the other thing we're going to try and do is keep that as stable as we can. So 5 one way, 5 the other, and then we're going to change legs. Now, more challenging still is to keep this leg still. Oh, there's Sam, the dog. Good. I'm going to try it with this leg. Okay. So, and if you feel comfortable, you can do both. All right, so I'm just going to take those. Now, if you've had any injuries or the hamstring is tight, you're going to find it really difficult to get that 90-degree angle so the leg is pointing up. So just take it as straight as you can. I find sometimes people do this, straight as you can, so you can see my mobility isn't quite back there yet, but I'm just going to gradually build it over time. And then we're going to change legs, my friends. So why are we doing this? Well, it's great for hip mobility because you'll notice you're moving that ball and socket joint. Very good if you're doing the straight leg for hamstring flexibility. And for both of them, it's absolutely excellent for core control. Okay, so quite often if you do one thing with one leg, the other leg wants to do the same. So we're training that body to allow the muscles to become strong enough to support you to do one thing at a time. Good. So as you move away from center, we're breathing out, breathing into center. So quite often that hardest part of the move is moving away from center. So imagine those headlights on your hip bones while you're doing this, shining straight up towards the ceiling. Those beams of light aren't moving at all. Good. Okay. And then when you've done your set on each side, some of you have probably done 2 sets on each side, we're just going to bring those knees into the chest again. Okay. Now, little bit more abdominal work. So now we're going to come into single leg stretch. I'm just going to check the time. We're okay. Don't worry. We're almost there. So we're going to find that neutral spine. So remember, if in doubt, take that pelvic tilt, make the movement smaller and smaller till you arrive at that midpoint. There's a slight curve, but if in doubt, keep that lower back closer to the mat. Now, we're going to come into single leg or double leg tabletop, shoulders nice and relaxed. Now, I'm going to do it in single today. So we're going to take that single leg stretch. So we're just going to push that leg away from center, slowly draw it in. Okay, this is what it looks like with 2 legs in tabletop. So one leg stays still, and we're just pushing that same leg. So we're going to do 8 to 12 on this side. Okay. Now, if you want to make it more challenging, we're going to take that leg float. Okay, leg float, arm float, and we're going to take that float, same arm, same leg. You can do that single or double. Breathing out. Now this is controlled, and what we're looking at really is this area from the ribs to the pelvis. What is it doing as we challenge it by moving the arms and legs? Okay, we want it stable. Okay, brilliant. Now when we've done 12, 8, 10 on that side, We need to do the same number on this side, okay? So I'm doing this in single leg, but I've got an arm float. I can take the arm out, and it's all about what's going on here. It's not about the leg movements. It's about what the leg movements make the body do. Okay, so at that point, this is the most challenging point. If you can't keep that back from arching, take the leg a bit higher. Okay, so push that foot away from you a little bit higher, and it's slightly easier to control. And when we've done our 8 to 10 on that side, whew, we're going to just roll it out. Great work, my friends. Great work. All right. Now, we're going to take this foot down, this one down. I'm going to bring you onto your side, and then we're just going to push ourselves up into that seated position again. Now, what we're going to do is just a seated spine stretch. Yeah, and then we're going to finish up. So we're just going to sit nice and tall, tighten that belt, draw those toes up to the ceiling, lift that chest over that imaginary beach ball, and then we're going to push that tailbone down into the mat. We're going to come all the way up. We're going to do 3 of these, my friends. So we're breathing out, breathing in. Good. Breathing out, breathing in. And then we're going to see if we can bring ourselves onto our fronts. And we're going to just take those hands ever so slightly wider than shoulder width position. And we're going to lower ourselves down onto this mat. Okay, now we're going to finish off with a little bit of arm strength. I'm going to build this in every week because I've decided I prefer this way of doing it. We're going to bring the hands lower than the shoulders, either side of that chest. Draw that tummy button in, shoulders relaxed away from the ears. We're going to push ourselves away from that mat, and then keeping that little orange between the chin and the chest, we're going to slowly lower ourselves down. Now, if this doesn't work for your shoulders, just don't do it. Just come into cat stretch or just 4-point kneeling static. Okay, so we're just going to do 3 of these this week. And then we're going to bring these knees in. Okay, and then just roll those shoulders up and back. We're going to finish with our hip flexor stretch. So we're going to slide 1 foot forwards. We're going to let this chest relax on the thigh. And this is the muscle here that we want to stretch, those hip flexors. Now relax the shoulders. We're going to lift the chest, but make sure you don't arch that back. So remember that tail. Push that tail down towards the mat. Lift that chest, and we're going to feel this stretch in the hip flexors. Now, we're just going to gently turn towards the supporting leg, come back to center, breathe in, breathe out, lift that chest, bring it down and change sides. Good. We're going to do the same on the other side. You can see now why, really, I need to keep my watch on. So, again, push that tailbone down towards the mat. Lift this chest, look straight ahead, nice relaxed shoulders, breathing out. Oh, and you've lost my head. Good. And bring it down. Okay, my friends. What we're going to do is tuck those toes under. We want to take those feet about hip width apart. We're going to roll up. If you're not comfortable with this, just come up however you feel comfortable. So we're going to see if we can just lengthen out those legs. Push that tailbone down towards the floor. Tighten that belt. Push that tail and stack that spine. 1 little segment at a time. I'm laughing. It's really funny when you can only see bits of me. All right. So I've kept us a little bit longer than normal. I try and make it an hour, but I do make the warm-ups quite long. I'm aware of that at the moment, just in case we've got anyone new joining us. So from here, we're just going to take a lovely breath in. We're going to breathe out. And we're going to remember all those
points. So the shoulders relaxed, that lovely neutral spine, long body, long spine. And we're going to take that breath in and so this is called return to center, this move. You can feel the feet on your floor, grounded, you're balanced. And we're going to focus on that breath out. That breath in and that breath. I'm going to take that little roll of the shoulders. Slide those shoulder blades down. Good. Well done, everybody. Well done. There was a couple more things I wanted to add, but it is 1:05 hours and I don't want to keep you all day. Thank you so much for joining me and Sam. We'll be just doing some stretches now to finish off. He was actually on the mat earlier before I joined you and I couldn't get him off. So I was worried at one point that he was going to be taking the session. But lovely. Any questions as normal, please email me or give me a ring. My email, Sarah with an H, .tagg, Tagg, at ceredigion.gov.uk. So give me a shout if you need anything at all. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.